Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford set for July the 29th for the undisputed titles. Finally, we get it. Are they meeting too late in their careers, or are they still just about there at the peak of their powers?
Yes, I think they're still about there. I think the fight absolutely makes sense. You know what? I hate rematch clauses, but the fact that they both get a rematch clause to activate should they be the loser makes sense as well, because bizarrely, and I think the catalyst for this that finally got it done, I think, was Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis a few months ago, and that did over 1 million pay-per-view buys. And I think that has really caught the attention of Terence Crawford and Errol Spence, because they've realised that, you know, boxing's been struggling to break that magic number in America since Triple G versus Canelo Part 2, and no one's been able to get anywhere near it, while the UFC has been hitting those numbers frequently. And I think that fight has said, highlighted to them, listen, if you come together, if we market this right, you guys are the best welterweights on the planet. You're both inside the pound for pound top 10. When you bring you guys together for a real fight, we can make some serious money. However, I don't think they'll make the kind of money they want on July 29th. I think they'll make the real money in the rematch at the end of the year. It has to be a 2-fight deal. It might even be a 3-fight in the end, Gareth, because they're so good and they're so well matched up.
One of the things that I would say, the big disappointing thing for Terence Crawford is when you look at his fights, Nick, since I think 2018, Jeff Horn, Jose Benavidez, Amir Khan, Kavaliauskas, Kell Brook, Sean Porter, David Avanesian. It's aging fighters. It's not the very elite. And he should have been in a different... Even though I favour him to beat Errol Spence, I'm going to go hard. I was wrong on 3 counts on Saturday night, by the way. I went wrong in the 3 headline fights. And that does happen. This is another pick'em. But I just think Terence Crawford's got so many special qualities, even though he's up against an amazing southpaw in Errol Spence. Both undefeated, of course. So much jeopardy on the line for both men. 39-0 against 28-0. A lot of people will favour Errol Spence in this fight. But it's an amazing contest. Sadly, again, I think Spence has got the better resume. We're talking about resumes of Tyson Fury earlier and Anthony Joshua. I think Spence has got the better resume, but Crawford seems to be able to do a number on anyone. I'm going to favour Crawford to pick open the lock. But these guys should be on their trilogy fight by now, frankly.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. They're head and shoulders. I know there's a real strong generation of welterweights coming below them. Real talent there as well. Boots Ennis and Ortiz Jr. especially. But these guys should be on. We should already be talking about the trilogy. They should already be crossover mainstream stars, because this matchup defines their legacy in a lot of ways. That Frazier and Ali define their legacy. That, so Morales and Barrera and Marquez and Pacquiao and all these matchups in history where 2 fighters of the same era come together and define it. This was it. This was their guy. This is how they become superstars, win, lose or draw. And you're right, they should be up to a trilogy by now. And I predict this will be the first fight in a trilogy, because I do believe it will be that close. I think resume-wise, you're right. I think Terence Crawford struggled to get the big names up at welterweight, but that's because Errol Spence and the PBC have basically owned every other belt in the welterweight division and have kept them as far away from Terence Crawford as possible. It's a division that's suffered by politics. When you look at Errol Spence's resume, yes, it has got bigger marquee names, but Mikey Garcia, Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, or Dennis Ugas, all PBC fighters. They've basically kept those belts in-house and had them pick off other members of the in-house stable, rather than give us the fight that we really want in this weight division. He's had 1 fight in 3 years, Errol Spence. And, part of that was down to the fact that he was, he crashed his car in the middle of the night and got done for a DUI. And then he crashed his car again. There's all kinds going on in the life of Errol Spence. We didn't even think he'd be back in a boxing ring at one point. All Terence Crawford's done is continue to tick by and beat the next guy put in front of him. I think Terence Crawford's a more talented fighter. Terence Crawford, though, also, Gareth, I don't know about your experiences. I've been around a couple of Terence Crawford's fights in Las Vegas, in New York. he's quite truculent with the media, and yet he doesn't want to speak to the media. And then next thing you know, he's asking why he isn't getting the $10 and $20 million paydays. Well, the two kind of go together. You've got to sell your persona. You've got to interact with media. You've got to interact with fans for people to buy in on you. And it's such a shame because his backstory is incredible. You know, he's this guy from Omaha, Nebraska, which is, you know, the back end of nowhere in terms of boxing. And yet he's got, you know, he had no real amateur credentials. And yet here he is, undisputed, multi-weight world champion, 39 fights, tons of knockouts, you know, many people's pound for pound #1 fighter. And no one truly knows who Terence Crawford is. It's completely bizarre. But I think this is the fight that we as an industry celebrate on July 29th. We say to everyone, come and see this. This is as good as boxing gets. I think it delivers either way. And I think the rematch at the end of the year, that's when the big money pours in, because I think we'll have caught the attention of the mainstream to go, okay, the first fight, you said it was going to be good. It was amazing. We're all in on the second fight. And that's when they get paid.
Yeah, well, I think you hit the nail on the head there. And I've tried it on with him many times.
Yeah.
Trying to get Terence Crawford out of his shell to explain the night he was playing craps and his car was shot at, tell his story, you know, even mentioning to him, do you want to be a big star? And he tells you, I am already a big star. Yes, he is, but not in crossover terms.
No.
This could be the event that creates that crossover for them, for him and Errol Spence. The names need to be indelibly linked. Yeah. It is a weird thing. What makes him great is what makes him weak in that sense, because I think Terence Crawford's a very stubborn guy. What works with his boxing. He's a phenomenal. I think he's very close to being the #1 pound for pound.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think technically, when you look at the guys at the top of the pound for pound list, you're looking at the Inues and the Alexander Usyks and the Terence Crawfords and the Canelos and people like that. When you look technically, he's as good as anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the resume he suffers from. Even though he's a multi-weight world champion, has he done it on the road like Alexander Usyk has in multiple weight divisions? No, he hasn't. Has he taken on the biggest fights possible? No, he hasn't. Has he captured the imagination of fight fans on a global scale? No, he hasn't. And that's what he's suffering from at the moment. You know, and I think this could be the fight that gets him there.
No, it is. But I do think you could be Billy Walker, the British heavyweight from the 60s. Never won a title, but sold out Wembley Arena 9 times. Made a ton of money. Brill Cream boy, really popular, X Factor, got knocked down a lot, but got up and fought other people. Was a real character. I'm mentioning him because he was charismatic. Never won a title, but made a ton of money and put bums on seats.
Yeah.
The problem is Terence has not allowed us to see his personality, and there is one there. That's the sad thing. And like you say, there is a truculence with him. He's one of the few people that I personally, over all the time working in boxing, you know, you try your charisma on people, you work them really hard.
Yeah.
Can't seem to crack him, to get him to show that personality. It's definitely there. Hopefully this is the fight that it happens.
Yeah. I remember cornering him in New York when he fought Amir Khan, and he refused to do any media outside of just the pure press conferences. And we managed to, you know, as you do, Gareth, we managed to kind of corner him in his hotel in New York, and we kind of caught him in a little ballroom. And instead of going straight in, you know, I tried to speak to him about his son, who's a high-level college wrestler, and he loves UFC and this MMA background. And Terence Crawford is a very, you know, competent college-level wrestler. And I kind of go in on that angle just to kind of soften him up a little bit to then get a bit more juice out of him. But it's just stoic. He's just
it's
not
interested. It's a wall of stone, isn't it? Yeah.
It's really strange. And, you know, at the end of the day, fight sport it's an entertainment business like any professional sport. It's an entertainment business. But when you're in America, you know, you're competing against NBA, you're competing against the NHL, you're competing against, you know, American football, the NFL. You're competing with all these other sports which automatically get a lot of airtime. A lot of boxers sitting at this level are aware of the fact that I have to give a bit to get a bit. I've got to give to the media to sell, to get airtime, to get on Sports Center, to do this. And he just doesn't do any of that whatsoever. And I think it's harmed him. And that's the reason why he isn't the multi-million-dollar fighter that he probably should be. He's right. Yeah. Technically and performances, he should be the guy that's getting 30, 40 million a fight. But he doesn't, because nobody knows who he is.
Absolutely. Let's hope he makes it his fight with Errol Spence, or Errol Spence makes it his fight,
Yeah,
and not they're not left as ghosts in this crowded sports landscape in America.